A heart-wrenching cry echoed across the Maasai Mara conservation area at dawn. It wasn't the usual roar of a leopard, but the agonizing sound of a creature struggling between life and death. Ranger David Kamani was the first to hear this cry and immediately knew something was wrong. He had worked at the conservation area for over 15 years, long enough to recognize when an animal was in critical condition. Kamani immediately contacted the conservation center. Maya, a 7-year-old female leopard, was one of the most famous leopards in the conservation area. She had given birth once before 2 years ago, and the process had gone smoothly. Her firstborn had now left the group and begun her own life, a success in the harsh, wild world. But from the beginning, this second pregnancy had been completely different. Maya was unusually large during pregnancy, moved with difficulty, and often rested longer than normal. Researchers had monitored her throughout the pregnancy and noted unusual behaviors. Maya hunted less and frequently made small groaning sounds when moving. Maya's painful cries continued for many hours. Conservation staff gathered around the area, keeping a safe distance to avoid stressing her further. Dr. Murray, the conservation area's chief veterinarian, monitored the situation through binoculars, ready to intervene if necessary. Although the conservation area's policy was to let nature take its course unless absolutely necessary, Maya struggled through labor, moving constantly from tree to tree, clawing at the ground and groaning in pain. The labor lasted nearly 20 hours, double the time of her previous birth. Staff became extremely worried when she began to show signs of exhaustion. Maya's eyes became glazed, and at times she seemed about to faint. Finally, with one last painful roar, Maya gave birth. But immediately after, instead of resting, she continued to groan and writhe. Dr. Murray realized that the birthing process wasn't over. Maya was carrying twins. Just 30 minutes later, the second cub was born. But instead of feeling relieved, the conservation staff stood frozen when they saw the 2 leopard cubs. Through binoculars, Dr. Murray could clearly see the problem. Both newborn leopard cubs lay unusually still. Occasionally, they would twitch, then seem to stop breathing for several seconds before taking a weak breath. Their legs stretched out helplessly, showing no signs of the normal movement that leopard cubs need to crawl to their mother and nurse. Both leopard cubs had respiratory and motor problems. In nature, such weak newborns rarely survive more than a few hours, but Maya didn't give up. With strong maternal instinct, she began caring for her newborn cubs. First, she licked them clean, then tried to push them toward her belly to nurse. But both leopard cubs couldn't move. Maya seemed to recognize the problem and began making worried calls. Both leopard cubs had short episodes of breathing cessation, about 15 to 20 seconds, during which they seemed to forget how to breathe. Afterward, they would pant as if trying to catch up. Their legs were also unusually weak, especially their hind legs, showing almost no signs of muscle strength. Keeman shook his head sadly. In 15 years of working at the conservation area, he had never seen leopard cubs unable to crawl to their mother after birth. This was not a good sign. The African sun gradually set on the horizon, and the monitoring team began using night vision equipment to continue observing. Maya continued tirelessly trying to stimulate her cubs to move. She licked them, pushed them, even gently bit their necks, a way mother leopards usually use to encourage cubs to move. But the response from both leopard cubs remained very weak. Particularly concerning was when one of the 2 leopard cubs began showing signs of more severe breathing difficulties. Her breathing became shallow and irregular. Maya seemed to sense this and focused her attention on the weaker cub, constantly licking and stimulating her. Maya, though exhausted after a long and painful labor, immediately began caring for her newborns. She licked them clean, tried to stimulate them to move. Maternal instinct drove her to continuously push gently and call to her cubs. But the response from both leopard cubs was very weak. They tried to lift their heads but couldn't hold them steady. Their hind legs were almost motionless, only occasionally twitching aimlessly. Particularly concerning were the episodes of breathing cessation. Every few minutes, both leopard cubs would seem to forget to breathe, their bodies stiffening until Maya licked their faces vigorously, stimulating the breathing reflex. This was a relentless battle, one that Maya couldn't win if she stopped caring for even a few minutes. At the Conservation Center, an emergency meeting took place. The conservation area's policy was not to interfere with natural processes, but this was a special case. Leopards are an endangered species, and Maya was one of the conservation area's most valuable breeding individuals. Moreover, the condition of the two leopard cubs might not be due to natural causes, but to environmental pollution or human-caused factors. While the debate continued, Maya fought tirelessly for her cubs' lives. She couldn't hunt, couldn't leave them, even for a minute. This meant she had to rely on small prey that happened to pass by or even go hungry. But Maya seemed not to care about her own needs. Every action of hers was focused on keeping her cubs alive. Particularly touching was how Maya developed a system to cope with her cubs' breathing episodes. When one of the two leopard cubs began showing signs of breathing cessation, body stiffening, eyes staring blankly, she would immediately lick vigorously at its nose and mouth, sometimes even gently bite its ear. This seemed to stimulate the breathing reflex, and the leopard cub would start breathing again. Similarly, to solve the movement problem, Maya had developed a unique method. She would place her cub very close to the milk source, then gently push their head toward the nipple. When they began to nurse, she would lie down in a special position, ensuring milk could flow into their mouths even when they couldn't actively suckle. By the third day, one of the two leopard cubs, the slightly stronger one, began making weak attempts to crawl. Her front legs were strong enough to pull her body forward, although her hind legs remained almost motionless. Maya seemed to recognize this progress and encouraged her by placing food, small pieces of meat she had pre-chewed, in front of her, forcing her to try to move to eat. The second cub was much weaker. She rarely tried to move, and breathing episodes occurred more frequently. Maya had to spend more time caring for her, sometimes gently holding her neck to pull her close to the milk source. Sometimes she would take the small leopard cub's entire head into her mouth, an action that looked frightening, but was actually to stimulate her breathing. The fourth day passed, and the situation became increasingly critical. Maya was almost exhausted. She had not eaten anything substantial since giving birth, and constantly having to monitor and stimulate both leopard cubs had depleted all her energy. But she didn't give up. With amazing determination, Maya continued fighting for her cubs' lives. On the afternoon of the fifth day, a worrying event occurred. The weaker leopard cub seemed to stop breathing completely. Maya panicked, licking and gently biting, but she didn't respond. She made pitiful cries, calling to her cub and pushing her continuously. For over a minute, the leopard cub lay motionless, and all observers thought she had died. But Maya didn't give up. In a desperate act, she took the leopard cub's entire head into her mouth, then released it and licked vigorously at her nose and mouth. And then a small miracle happened. The leopard cub coughed lightly and began breathing again, weak but clear. Maya had just performed a form of artificial respiration, but even though Maya could save her cub this time, it was clear that the situation couldn't continue like this. The weaker leopard cub was gradually weakening, and Maya was also exhausting her strength. Without intervention, all three mother and cubs were at risk of not surviving. Environmental samples from around where Maya usually appeared were tested and showed unusually high concentrations of a harmful bacteria type that could cause neurological problems in animals. The source of this bacteria was identified as from an illegal factory about 20 kilometers away discharging directly into the water system. The final decision was made. The conservation team would intervene to save Maya and her cubs. A detailed plan was drawn up, and experts from around the world were contacted for support. That night, as Maya struggled to keep her cubs alive through another night, the rescue team began preparing for the dangerous mission. That night, the situation reached a critical point. The weaker leopard cub seemed to stop breathing completely. Maya panicked, licking and gently biting, but she didn't respond. She made pitiful cries, calling to her cub and pushing her continuously. The conservation staff decided it was time to intervene. Early the next morning, a team of veterinarians and rangers approached the area where Maya was staying with her cubs. They brought medical equipment, medicines, and a special cage designed to transport the leopard family. Maya, though exhausted, still fiercely protected her cubs when she detected human presence. She stood blocking her cubs and growled warnings, although her body trembled from exhaustion. The veterinarians had to use tranquilizer guns. After Maya fell asleep, the leopard cubs were quickly examined on site. Both were in critical condition, especially the weaker one. They were placed in portable warming cages and, along with Maya, were transported to a field laboratory that had been set up nearby. Here, detailed tests were conducted and confirmed that both leopard cubs were infected with a type of harmful bacteria that attacks the nervous system. particularly the centers controlling breathing and movement. This bacteria originated from polluted water that Maya had drunk during pregnancy. Water sample tests from streams around areas where Maya usually appeared showed high concentrations of industrial waste and heavy metals, clear signs of illegal dumping. Blood and tissue samples from both leopard cubs also showed unusually high levels of mercury and lead, toxins that can cause severe neurological damage. These substances had passed through the placenta from Maya to her cubs during pregnancy, causing congenital problems with breathing and movement. An aggressive treatment regimen, including strong antibiotics, oxygen therapy, and special physical therapy, was immediately applied. The leopard cubs were placed in warming cages with oxygen support systems, while Maya was treated for exhaustion and malnutrition. She was also given chelating agents, special medicines that help remove heavy metals from the body. The biggest challenge was the breathing episodes in both leopard cubs. Bacteria and environmental toxins had attacked the breathing center in the brain, causing the body to occasionally forget how to breathe. Scientists set up a sophisticated monitoring system, alerting every time a leopard cub's breathing became abnormal. When this happened, medical staff would immediately stimulate the leopard cub with a special brush, mimicking how Maya licked them to stimulate breathing. The healthier leopard cub, named Jabari, Brave, responded well to antibiotics and detox therapy. His breathing episodes decreased significantly, and he began showing more strength in his front legs. However, his hind legs remained very weak with signs of permanent nerve damage due to early exposure to environmental toxins. The chief veterinarian explained, "The developing nervous system of leopard cubs is extremely sensitive to environmental toxins. These heavy metals have bound to nerve cells controlling movement, causing damage that may never fully recover. This is a direct consequence of water pollution." The second cub, named Amani Hope, remained in critical condition. Not only affected by environmental toxins, she also showed signs of more severe neurological complications. Her breathing episodes continued at a worrying frequency, and she had almost no ability to move. The part of the brain controlling automatic breathing had been severely damaged, causing her to frequently forget to breathe. A special brain scanner was brought in showing significant damage to Amani's brainstem, the area controlling automatic functions like breathing. Jabari's brain images also showed damage but much less severe. This difference was explained by the position of the two cubs in the uterus. Amani may have been in a position to receive more toxins through placental blood flow. Maya recovered quickly. After 3 days of adequate nutrition and rest, she had regained most of her strength. Blood tests showed she also had heavy metal levels in her blood, but with a mature immune system, she had been able to resist their effects better. However, veterinarians worried that prolonged exposure to polluted environments could cause long-term health problems for her. She began showing restlessness in the isolation area, frequently pacing and making calls for her cubs. Scientists knew it was time to consider reuniting this family. A special support harness was developed for both leopard cubs. These harnesses were designed to support their hind legs, allowing them to move despite weak legs due to nerve damage. For Amani, the device was even more complex, including a small sensor attached to her neck to monitor breathing and emit a gentle stimulus when detecting signs of breathing cessation. "We can't completely fix the brain damage caused by environmental toxins," the neurological specialist explained, "but we can create support systems to help them survive and adapt." The reunion day took place a week after Maya and her cubs were brought into care. Maya was brought into a safe, spacious, but fenced area, so scientists could intervene if necessary. This area was designed to look as much like the natural environment as possible, with trees, rocks, and even a small stream flowing through with water carefully filtered to remove all traces of pollutants. Jabari, the healthier leopard cub, was brought in first. He could move quite well with the support harness, although still a bit wobbly. His breathing episodes had decreased significantly, only occurring when he was very tired. The tense moment came when Maya approached her cub. She carefully smelled Jabari, seeming confused by the strange smell and harness. Then, as if recognizing her cub despite everything, Maya began licking Jabari, accepting him back. Next, Amani was brought in. This weaker leopard cub still needed a lot of support. Her harness was more complex, flex, supporting both front and hind legs. The small breathing monitor attached to her neck emitted a soft beep whenever she showed signs of breathing cessation, stimulating her to continue breathing. Maya once again smelled and examined her cub. She seemed to perceive Amani's special condition and immediately approached her with special care. She licked her more vigorously, stimulated her more, and more frequently pulled her close. In the following days, Maya and her 2 cubs were carefully monitored. Scientists continued to provide food and medical support when needed. They also took samples of water, soil, and plants from the surrounding area to continue analyzing pollution levels. Environmental test results further confirmed initial concerns. An illegal chemical factory about 20 km from the conservation area had been discharging directly into the water system, causing pollution in a large water source area. This waste contained mercury, lead, and other toxic industrial chemicals, all powerful neurotoxins. This is not an isolated case, an environmental expert explained. We are witnessing increasing cases of birth defects and diseases in wildlife due to environmental pollution. Maya and her cubs are just the visible victims of a much larger problem. An investigation into the illegal factory was quickly conducted. Kenyan authorities raided this facility and discovered serious violations of environmental regulations. The factory was shut down, the owner was arrested, and an emergency cleanup plan was deployed to treat polluted areas. Simultaneously, a comprehensive wildlife health survey throughout the conservation area was conducted. Researchers discovered many other cases of unusual health problems in wildlife, especially in species living near polluted water sources. Some young were born with defects, and many adult animals showed signs of neurological diseases and immune system decline. This is a wake-up call. The chief veterinarian emphasized environmental pollution not only affects humans but also directly threatens the survival of wildlife. The case of Maya and her cubs has helped us realize the severity of this problem. Jabari continued to improve rapidly. Breathing episodes almost disappeared, and he began to be able to move without the support harness, although his hind legs remained weaker than normal. Veterinarians predicted he would always have a slight limp, a permanent sign of neurological damage caused by environmental toxins during fetal development. Amani developed much more slowly. Breathing episodes continued, though less frequently, and she remained heavily dependent on monitoring and breathing stimulation devices. Her mobility was also severely limited, especially in her hind legs. Veterinarians predicted she would need long-term support and might never be able to hunt independently in the wild. These are the long-term consequences of environmental pollution, the neurological specialist explained. The developing brain is extremely sensitive to toxins. Even when we can remove toxins from the body, the neurological damage that has occurred may be permanent. Maya seemed to understand her cub's special condition, especially Amani's. She spent more time caring for the weaker leopard cub, frequently pulling her close and teaching her how to move despite limitations. She also began bringing small prey to her for hunting practice, adjusting lessons to fit her cub's limited abilities. The story of Maya and her 2 leopard cubs quickly spread globally, becoming a powerful symbol of environmental pollution's impact on wildlife. Media from around the world flocked to Maasai Mara to record this story. Images of Amani with support equipment, tangible proof of the price of uncontrolled industrial development, appeared on front pages of major newspapers and magazines. Public pressure led to a comprehensive investigation into industrial activities around conservation areas in Kenya. Many other illegal facilities were discovered and shut down. The Kenyan government tightened environmental protection regulations and increased monitoring of areas around conservation areas. A special fund was established to research and treat animals affected by environmental pollution. Veterinary and environmental experts from around the world gathered at Maasai Mara to learn from Maya's case and apply these lessons to conservation work elsewhere. What we're witnessing with Maya and her cubs is just the tip of the iceberg. An ecologist warned many wildlife species are facing similar challenges due to environmental pollution, but they're not fortunate enough to be discovered and treated in time like Maya. 6 months after that memorable event, a comprehensive assessment of Maya and her 2 leopard cubs' condition was conducted. Jabari had developed well, able to move and hunt almost normally, although still with a slight limp in his hind leg. Blood tests showed heavy metal levels in his body had decreased significantly, though still higher than normal levels. Amani still faced more challenges. She still depended on breathing, monitoring, and stimulation devices, and her mobility remained significantly limited. However, she had developed amazing adaptations. Unable to chase prey like normal leopards, she had learned to hide perfectly and wait for prey to come close, using less energy but requiring extraordinary patience. Maya continued to be a devoted mother, spending more time than usual with her cubs, especially Amani. This was also unusual, as normally mother leopards would begin separating from cubs when they were about 1 year old. Researchers believed Maya was aware of her cub's special condition and adjusted her behavior accordingly. This is a testament to nature's amazing adaptability. An ecologist noted, "Maya and her cubs are teaching us that even when facing human-created challenges, wildlife can still find ways to survive, but they shouldn't have to." A comprehensive environmental monitoring program was established around Maasai Mara and other conservation areas in Kenya. Water, soil, and plant samples were collected and analyzed regularly to detect early signs of any pollution. An early warning system was also established to monitor wildlife health with special attention to signs of environmental toxin exposure. MA's case is a valuable lesson. The Conservation Area Director emphasized, "It shows us that wildlife conservation cannot be separated from environmental protection. They go hand in hand." 1 year after that memorable event, a comprehensive report on Maya's story and its impact on conservation policy was published. The report noted that since discovering Maya and her cubs' condition, over 30 illegal industrial facilities had been shut down in Kenya and environmental regulations had been significantly tightened. More importantly, the report also noted significant improvement in overall wildlife health in the region. Birth defect rates in young animals had decreased and fewer cases of unusual neurological diseases in adult animals. Maya and her cubs became an alarm bell, the report concluded. They helped us recognize the inseparable connection between planetary health and the health of all living creatures on it, including humans. Today, Maya and her 2 leopard cubs have become symbols of Maasai Mara Conservation Area. Jabari, now nearly 2 years old, has begun establishing his own territory, although still maintaining close contact with his mother and sister. Amani still stays with Maya, still partially dependent on support equipment, but has developed unique hunting skills suited to her abilities. Visitors from around the world come to Maasai Mara hoping to see this famous leopard family, but they also come to learn about the threats environmental pollution poses to wildlife and what they can do to help protect these magnificent creatures. The story of Maya, Jabari, and Amani is not just a story of survival against adversity. It's a powerful warning about our responsibility to protect the natural world from human impact. It reminds us that all our actions, from how we produce goods to how we dispose of waste, have far-reaching consequences for the natural world. As the sun sets over the Maasai Mara horizon, Maya and her 2 leopard cubs sit on a rock watching the vast grassland. Amani, with a small support device on her neck and special harness on her hind legs, is a tangible reminder of the price of uncontrolled development and our responsibility to ensure that future generations of wildlife don't pay for our mistakes.